At 62, Graham Norton talks about the 6 guests he really didn't like. Graham Norton was born on April 4, 1963, in a small seaside town in Ireland called Clondalkin. Later, his family moved to Bandon in County Cork. He grew up far away from the fame and cameras that he would become so used to later in life. When Graham was young, he was funny, thoughtful, and really good at noticing things about people. He loved making jokes and telling stories, and these talents would become the most important parts of his career. Even though Ireland was pretty traditional back then, Graham's smart mind and natural comedy skills made him want to perform, even before he knew exactly what that meant. He went to University College Cork for a while, but his heart really wanted to do theatre. So he moved to London to study at a special drama school called the Central School of Speech and Drama. That's where he started creating the bold, fun, and warm personality that everyone loves today. Like most famous entertainers, Graham didn't become a star right away. He worked really hard in comedy clubs all around London, developing a style that was easy to recognize, clever, a bit fancy, and happily wild. His early work on the BBC, especially when he appeared on a show called Father Ted, helped people in the TV business notice him. But what really made him super famous were his hosting jobs on a channel called Channel 4, with shows like So Graham Norton and V. Graham Norton. His interviews were totally different from the boring, polished talk shows people were used to watching. Instead, Graham turned chat shows into a fun party. The celebrity guests would relax, laugh, and share stories they didn't plan to tell. Somehow, they all felt like they were just hanging out with an old friend. His humor was perfect. A little naughty but never mean, wild but never cruel. People watched not just to see the famous people, but to see him. When The Graham Norton Show started on the BBC in 2007, Graham had already proven himself as the most exciting and unpredictable interviewer on British TV. The show quickly became super popular and important, known for its famous red couch where Hollywood legends, new stars, musicians, and sometimes entire movie casts would all sit together at the same time. Graham's style was amazing. He could get even the shyest guests to be fun and interesting, tease A-list celebrities without making them mad, and turn awkward moments into hilarious comedy. Many people say that no one on modern television has mastered the art of easy, natural charm quite like him. But Graham's talents didn't stop at talk shows. He became a beloved host of the Eurovision Song Contest in the UK, taking over from Terry Wogan and bringing his own style of loving sarcasm to the huge international music competition. He also built an impressive career as a radio host, a novelist, and a judge on shows like RuPaul's Drag Race UK, where his deep love for performance and LGBTQ+ culture really shines through. His novels, which are surprisingly serious, emotional, and well-written, show a thoughtful side of Graham that many casual fans never expected. On October 2, 2010, the charming Graham Norton took over BBC Radio 2's Saturday morning show, replacing the legendary Jonathan Ross. From the very first time he was on air, Graham brought his special humor, warmth, and quick wit to radio, transforming the weekend time slot into a lively, unpredictable, and super entertaining experience. He was joined by the lovely Maria McErlane, who became the show's agony aunt during a popular segment called Grill Graham, where listeners could ask their burning questions or share their problems, knowing they'd get Graham's sharp, playful, and often hilarious answers. The show had lots of creative and interactive features that fans quickly loved. In Tune with a Tale, listeners were invited to suggest songs that tell a story or have a plot, explaining the narrative behind the music and giving the audience a fresh way to think about songs they might have thought they knew. Meanwhile, I Can't Believe It's Not Better let fans request songs that were once big hits but maybe didn't age well over time, creating moments of laughter, nostalgia, and gentle musical criticism. Unlike weekday shows like Steve Right in the Afternoon, which aired from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., Graham's Saturday show quickly became more than just a radio program. It became its own brand with its own identity, rhythm, and style. Each hour had a unique flow, often filled with playful, funny interactions, audience participation, and a mix of familiar and original music jingles. While Graham did use standard BBC Radio 2 jingles, he also added special custom-made jingles performed live by the BBC Radio 2 Orchestra, adding a touch of drama and flair that made the show feel special and instantly recognizable. Beyond his professional achievements, Graham Norton is a cultural icon whose influence goes way beyond entertainment. For many LGBTQ+ viewers, especially those who grew up without seeing open representation on TV, Graham became a symbol of hope, someone who was unapologetically himself during a time when that wasn't always easy. He didn't build his career despite who he is. He built it with who he is, and he did it with humor, humility, and a huge heart. He has spoken honestly about challenges, fears, relationships, and the pressures of being famous. And this openness only made the connection he shares with millions of fans even stronger. Today, Graham is celebrated not just for how long he's been in the entertainment world, but for how he changed it. His interviews have become legendary. His comedic timing is considered among the best in the business, and his signature laugh, bright, spontaneous, and uncontrollably contagious, has become a kind of cultural landmark. As a broadcaster, he has won countless awards and global recognition, but perhaps his greatest accomplishment is simpler. He makes people feel comfortable. He makes them laugh. He makes them forget about the heavy stuff in the world, if only for an hour. Graham Norton, the famous Irish television and radio presenter, comedian, and actor, has been in a loving and committed relationship with Joan MacLeod, whom he officially married in 2022. Their wedding was a big and joyful moment in Graham's personal life. It was celebrated quietly but meaningfully, showing that the couple prefers privacy even though Graham lives in the intense public spotlight that comes with being a celebrity. Joan MacLeod, who keeps a much lower public profile compared to Graham's high-profile career in entertainment, is often described as a supportive and steady partner, someone who provides a grounding presence in Graham's life. Their relationship, built on mutual respect, trust, and shared values, has been admired by fans and media alike, especially in a time when public figures' personal lives are frequently examined closely. The marriage doesn't just symbolize a personal commitment, it also highlights Graham's journey toward a fulfilling private life, balancing the demands of his worldwide fame with the closeness and warmth of a stable partnership. Over the years, their relationship has been marked by shared milestones, travel, and quiet moments away from the public eye, showing that behind the laughter, charm, and dazzling television personality, Graham treasures his life with MacLeod. The 2022 wedding itself, while understated, was celebrated among close friends and family, signaling a new chapter of companionship, love, and mutual support, proof of how Graham values lasting personal connections alongside his professional achievements. Their marriage continues to thrive, showing both the ordinary joys and extraordinary moments of life shared between two people committed to one another, and it stands as an inspiring example of love and partnership in the world of entertainment. At 62, Graham Norton didn't hold back when talking about some of the guests on The Graham Norton Show that he really couldn't stand. Over his long career as a friendly, witty chat show host, he has met many celebrity visitors, but not all of them have been pleasant or even easy to deal with. Graham has occasionally shared his frustrations, and in recent comments he pointed to 6 particularly difficult or terrible guests, naming them because of their behavior, their attitude, or how chaotic their appearances became. The first and most well-known person on Graham's list is Mark Wahlberg. Graham described Wahlberg's appearance during a 2013 episode as hell. He remembered that when Mark Wahlberg arrived, he didn't seem drunk at first, but then only 15 minutes into the show, whatever was in his system really kicked in and it was hell. According to Graham, Wahlberg started interrupting other guests without any shame, taking over the flow of conversation, and eventually no one could tell a story. At one point, Graham looked over at him and saw he was asleep on the couch during Michael Fassbender's story. Graham added quite directly, "We don't encourage that. meaning they don't deliberately make their guests drunk, but Wahlberg clearly showed up in a condition that ruined the show. Another name that often comes up is Mickey Rourke. Graham has described him as just exhausting. Rourke apparently showed up with half a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey, and he insisted on chain-smoking throughout the taping. Graham said, "I'd turn away for a second and he'd have lit another cigarette. It was so boring. You feel like a teacher taking children on a school trip, not a chat show host." That constant cigarette lighting and general lack of interest made for a very difficult interview. Certainly not the lively, fun conversation that Graham's show is known for. Then there's Kevin Costner, another A-list star who, despite his fame, rubbed Graham the wrong way. According to Graham, Costner seemed standoffish and like he was reluctantly participating. Graham said, "I ask him a question and he looks at me like, 'Jesus, do I have to talk to this man?' He kind of gives a half-hearted answer." Helen Mirren chips in and he could not be happier. What Graham means is that Costner was more comfortable staying quiet or giving short responses rather than engaging in the playful, open storytelling that Graham encourages on his sofa. Robert De Niro is another name Graham singled out. While De Niro is one of the most respected actors in Hollywood, Graham felt he was a poor guest in conversational settings. He called De Niro a benign presence and noted his reluctance to tell stories. At the Cheltenham Literature Festival, Graham remembered, "We were all leaning in, willing it to be amazing." Then he finally went, "Why am I telling this?" Nobody had an answer. We cut it. For Graham, De Niro's silence and hesitation made the interview feel flat, almost like the actor was only there because he had to be, not because he wanted to share or connect. One particularly disturbing name on the list is Harvey Weinstein. Graham has said that Weinstein is his least favorite guest ever, and for very troubling reasons. Graham recalled how Weinstein had kept insisting on being on his show, emailing Graham even after being turned away at first. Graham described the emails as showing weird tunnel vision behavior, and looking back now, he found them deeply unsettling. It was sort of chilling in retrospect. That is what makes him a predator. Beyond personality clashes, Graham was struck by Weinstein's persistence, an insight he felt into a darker side of the man. Finally, Daryl Hannah makes an appearance on Graham's list of challenging guests. Graham said she wasn't a great guest, not because she was rude or demanding, but because she seemed painfully anxious. Graham explained that she had a known fear of chat shows and that he'd been warned about possible fainting issues. During the episode, she was nervous and the show was still a very poor show, Graham admitted. But there was a bright side. After it was over, Hannah was high as a kite. She really felt like she'd done an amazing thing, and I was thrilled for her that she had gotten through it. For Graham, it was less about her being mean and more about her being deeply uncomfortable, a guest who didn't quite fit into his fast-paced, story-driven format. Graham has also spoken more broadly about how some guests just kill the energy in the room. He once said that some people bring in a kind of sadness or defensiveness that drags down the show. "You kill every room you enter," he told SiriusXM Radio. He sometimes prevents that risk by booking a comedian alongside potentially difficult guests to make sure someone lightens the mood. In naming these 6 people, Mark Wahlberg, Mickey Rourke, Kevin Costner, Robert De Niro, Harvey Weinstein, and Daryl Hannah, Graham wasn't just complaining. He was offering a rare, honest peek into the behind-the-scenes realities of hosting a chat show. Not all stars are charming, not all stories work well, and sometimes the glamour masks something far more challenging. As he put it, there are people on the show that you don't like, but that doesn't mean they are a bad guest. Yet for these 6, he clearly made an exception, full of memories, frustration, and a little relief that he doesn't have to edit them out of his recollections.